Few
Fine.
seconds.
It's fine. Hello. Today is the 27th of April. Welcome to MetaGaming. I am Llama Chump, and I am here with Lolash. It has been a long
Hi.
time.
It's been too long.
Yeah.
We haven't had this discussion recently. Well, we haven't had any discussions recently. We haven't done a metagaming for over a month now. But today we get to, and there's like tons of things to talk about. We've got what we've been playing and what we're looking forward to playing, and we've got stuff, twitchy stuff.
Yeah, a lot of things have been happening
industry.
recently, and we have lots of good stuff to cover.
Let's start with what you've been playing, Llama.
Yeah.
There's some things that you want to talk about.
I've been playing The Witness, which is a puzzle game, and then we've been playing Factorio and For the King together, which we'll talk about in just a moment. But I have a lot of thoughts on The Witness that I've been waiting for a moment to talk about with someone, because it's a very thought-provoking game, and it has some good things, and it has some bad things, and it has some what as well.
Like basically the definition of the good, the bad, and the ugly. So
Yeah.
I've not played The Witness, but I have watched a bunch of your playthrough. Not all of it. I didn't see the ending. I didn't catch the last stream, but I did see a bunch of other stuff.
And you made this comment in the Twitch chat room while I was playing, and I thoroughly endorse this comment. Do not watch coverage of The Witness if you ever intend to play it. Don't watch someone play it.
Yep.
There are a lot of games that get better if you watch someone else play them. I think that XCOM is one of those. It's fun to watch someone else's solutions to the situations you get into in XCOM. I think competitive games are really fun to watch. Things like Hearthstone or League of Legends or whatever. It's fun to watch high-level play of those games, and it enhances your own gameplay to watch the decision-making, right? It makes the game better when you play it, having more experience watching people play it. The Witness is the opposite. It's in a class of games that no one should ever do playthroughs of and coverage of, because it's a game about learning things and discovering things, and you rob people of a lot of the experience by learning it and discovering it in front of them.
Yeah, I think it's even in a class of its own because of how it teaches you things.
Right.
And when I think of games that are classically not great as streamed content, I think things like RPGs, right? In an RPG, there's a lot of focus on the story elements, and you'll want to experience that for yourself. And so watching an RPG playthrough can ruin the story for you because you know what's coming and make it less likely you'll want to play it yourself. The Witness is worse than that.
Yeah.
Because every element of the game is taught through observation. And I think that's its greatest strength.
And some of those games, it's okay to watch a movie with your friends, and you might still watch it again later. But a game like The Witness, where it's about seeing things and coming to understand them, and it's just ruined if you get any of that understanding out of order or from somebody else. So don't watch it if you want to play it.
You ruined it for me.
Yeah, I did.
Sad face.
Yeah, I think I ruined it for a lot of people because I didn't realize before we got started that I was ruining it for people. And then I needed to finish it for those people. Right? Because if it's already ruined, we might as well finish it together in the same ruined state.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I've read some criticism of The Witness that I think is just painfully stupid, and I'm going to disagree wholeheartedly. Some people play The Witness and they go, man, this is the same puzzle over and over and over again. They're all the same. It's all just drawing a line from one place to another place. How lame. And that's true? All of the puzzles are drawing a line from one place to another place? But if you thought it was too samey, you didn't play it long enough, or you are dumb and wrong. Those are the options.
You can draw a parallel with every other puzzle, right? Like, is every crossword the same crossword? Is every Sudoku the same Sudoku? Yeah, it has the same rules, but every one is unique and different. And
and the Witness takes this line puzzle way beyond doing crosswords over and over and over, and way beyond doing a bunch of different Sudokus, because they explored the space of line puzzles very thoroughly. They have lots of puzzles with lots of different rule sets, and they combine the rule sets, and they sort of meditate on that theme. And there are a ton of surprises and a ton of things to learn and a ton of moments where you go, oh, as your paradigm completely shifts because you were thinking about the puzzle the wrong way. And
there's a particular point in that game, and we're going to try and avoid spoilers, because once again, this is a game I honestly think if I'd picked it up and played it myself, I would have gotten incredible joy out of it. And I think anybody who hasn't played it yet and enjoys puzzle games, you've specifically got to enjoy puzzle games for it to be worthwhile. Or really pretty games, because there's a lot of really great hidden art and stuff in the game. But if you enjoy puzzle games, you'll want to play this. So we'll try and avoid spoilers. But there's one point in the game, I'm not going to say what it is, but it's the point, I think, of the greatest discovery within the game, and you should know what I'm saying. And that particular, I got to witness that point on the game, and I'd had an inkling before you discovered it. I hadn't seen anything to confirm my suspicions, but I'd had an inkling. And the moment where you discovered it and confirmed that inkling for me, even from a third-person perspective, was amazing. Like, it was just the entire world evolved around you, and while you were playing in the same area, the entire it was like playing a whole different game.
That's one of the major points that I want to bring up that this game made me think about in a new way, is how much the knowledge in your brain physically changes the way your eyes work. Right? You are seeing the same input. The same exact photons are hitting your retinas in the same exact way they did 10 minutes ago. And because you know a new thing, it looks different. The very appearance of the world has been altered. And that was amazing to me. And a thing that I hadn't thought about. And I think that idea probably extends into some philosophical places, and it probably extends into some scientific places. And it was just really neat for me to experience it so well presented. That idea that you can walk past something, look right at it, and then walk past it in exactly the same way 10 minutes later and see something entirely different.
And this is purely anecdotal, I don't have reference material on hand, but there was a great study done based around the detection of color by the human eye, where there were certain tribes, I can't remember if they were African or...
It wasn't Africa. I'm going to quickly start Googling, because this is a neat thing, and I might be able to find
I'll talk about it. All right, so there was a study done where they presented people from different ethnicities from around the world with a color chart, which was basically a bunch of blue with a green dot on it somewhere. It was a bunch of blue dots with a green dot, kind of like the color blindness tests that you've probably all had to do at some point in your life.
I have some pictures to show while you do this. Right, I'll bring them up.
Okay, so there were certain cultures that, because they never had words to describe the difference between like a blue and a green, they were effectively the same color in their eyes, despite them being completely different on the paper and different pigments. Like, we're talking like different physical structures that display light.
I'm going to drop
there's no ambiguity there.
A link in Discord so you can get details and the pictures that are showing on the stream.
Okay, yeah. So people could literally not tell the difference, even when it was pointed out to them.
Yeah.
That there were different colors on the screen, right?
So the
there
name
was literally no difference.
The name of the tribe is Himba, and it's in Namibia. And the image that's showing on the stream right now, or on the video, is a ring of green squares. And one of them, to my eyes, is just painfully blue and not at all green. And you can absolutely, without even thinking about it, tell that on the left side there's just a blue one. And the man that you see sitting there looking at the screen can't. Those all look the same to him. Because of the language he uses to describe color is the point of the study, which is amazing. I mean, his physical perception of color is dictated by the information stored in his brain. Now I'm going to show you the version that is for Western eyes that process color like we do. We'll scroll down to that. It is a ring of identical green squares. That tribesman sees one of these squares as differently as we see that blue one. It was just as easy for him to pick it out.
Which is, it's just crazy to think about how the information that you have available to you can affect something as as physical as sight,
as fundamental as, seeing is believing. We innately trust our eyes to give us reliable, factual information about the world. And the fact of the matter is that your perception is just influenceable by your knowledge and your life experience. And to the point where I can't tell the difference between colors that someone with a different life experience can tell the difference between. That's amazing. I mean, I think we're familiar with that with sounds. When you can't hear the difference in sounds you weren't trained to hear as a child. When you're learning a new language, and it's hard to form the difference between those sounds with your mouth. But you don't expect the same thing with your eyes.
SciShow recently, I'm a big fan of SciShow. I subscribe to all of their channels on YouTube. If you're not familiar with SciShow, you should definitely check out their YouTube channel. They do a lot of really amazing sciencey type stuff. They recently did an episode on bilingual babies and the differences in speech recognition between different ages and different types of babies, like babies born into bilingual families, babies who aren't, and how they recognize the different sounds and speech patterns. And there was a statistically significant measurement of difference between bilingual and unilingual. Unilingual? I think it's unilingual. Children in the way that they recognize the differences in sound. Purely based on the exposure they have during the pregnancy itself and the first few months after birth. It's kind of crazy.
Mm-hmm. But I think
when you think about it,
I think that one's easier for us to be okay with, because I missed that developmental stage and didn't form those pathways to hear those sounds, and that's fine. But the fact that your eyes can lie to you, and the fact that, I mean, seriously, it was a 4-second moment in the game that changed the entire island the way it looked. For my eyes, it becomes hard to trust your eyes. And I think there's some space you can explore there with being empathetic to other people, because they may physically see the world differently than you because they have experienced different things in their life. You both might look at the same sheet of paper and see two different things. There's just a lot of a lot of thinking to be done. And it's a very thought-provoking game, The Witness, is sort of the point that I want to make by exploring all of that, is there is a ton to think about and a ton of experience that you can get for your mind.
And there's some other things that are hidden within the game as well, which provide some really strange juxtaposition.
Right.
Um,
and so
and
So my criticism of the game is you have these points that are exquisitely well made by your experience in the game.
Yep.
And artfully done, and you get to do a lot of thinking on your own, and it feels like you're discovering things about yourself and about perception and about the world. And you can have this very deep personal experience by just walking around and solving the puzzles. And then you find a secret, and it plays a video of another person talking about... we saw 3 out of 6, I think, on my playthrough of these hidden videos. And one of them is Richard Feynman, who was a brilliant physicist. If you haven't heard of him, go hear of him and watch some of his stuff that exists on YouTube, because he's amazing. And one of them was
too. Really good to watch.
A man that you'll remember the name of because you immediately recognized him, and this was the first time I had seen him.
And now you've put me on the spot, and I definitely can't remember who it was.
Okay.
He's a British television producer, come historian, come... why can I not remember? Somebody in chat will prompt me, I'm sure. But in the meantime...
And at any rate, it was these very thoughtful pieces on how we perceive things and how to learn about things. And it sort of fits that theme of discovery and learning and perception, right? That's in the game. But it's a little more ham-fisted when someone else is handing it to you instead of you finding it for yourself. Even for those very reliable good sources with actual knowledge. And the first video we found... Oh,
it hurt my brain. I don't... Like, I was...
This quiet talking woman with this really creepy smile talking about not wanting things, which I think, being able to free your mind from wanting things is an interesting thing to think about and probably has some implications for experiencing life in a happier way. And then she just keeps talking, and she doesn't add any information while she's talking. And it is the most painful thing that I've sat through. Oh.
I think, the sentiment is interesting, right? It's almost Buddhist in its sort of step back from the world kind of perspective. But the problem was that it was presented in this cyclical, repetitive nonsense way that just ground on me. Like, I almost decided to pause the stream and be like, I'm gonna come back in like half an hour.
Right. She had a decent point to make, but she made it incredibly poorly. And she also made it as if it was way more important. She talked way more about how important it was and how hard it was to understand than she did about trying to explain it and trying to help you understand it. And that was really grating. And it felt a little culty when she was talking about, like, just how super duper 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 important it is. And I think that is also my problem with the ending of the game, which is my other complaint.
James Burke was the other good video, by the way. Thank you to chat for that.
So we found 3 out of 6 hidden videos in the game. 2 were thought-provoking, and 1 was drivel. And and I wonder about the other 3. I'm a little curious. I might go back and try and find them, or I might look for them online or something.
I was going to say, just YouTube them.
Yeah. But I don't think they added to the experience. As a whole, I think I gained a lot more without someone explaining what I was supposed to be gaining, because I felt like I was learning it by myself, and I'll remember that better than like I watched a video where a guy said some deep stuff. And
I think
it came across as a little pretentious that, suddenly I realized, and the developer had a point to make, and I thought it was presented very well by the puzzles. But when they're like, here are some other videos that illustrate our point, let me beat you in the face with them, it didn't feel as good.
I think I didn't play the game. I didn't get to explore the story. And I think that if you spent more time in the world of The Witness and discovered all of the secrets and all of the videos and all of the hidden areas and completed all of the puzzles and did absolutely everything, there might be more of a point, because there's just layers upon layers upon layers in that game, and all of those videos might have a really serious meaning. It also could be, I mean, those videos had an alternate point or an alternate purpose. I'm sure you remember the alternate purpose.
Right.
And like maybe they were mostly selected for that reason. I couldn't comment on exactly why, but it's interesting. But we shouldn't. I know you really want to talk about the ending.
Well,
I'm
not going to spoil the ending.
That's a good idea to do.
I'm not going to spoil the ending, but I am going to say I saw 2 of the endings. I believe there are 3. I saw the main ending, and I saw the very easy to get to after you've won. There's another ending that you can see if you start the game back up again. And then I didn't see, I think there's another ending if you 100% complete everything on the island, which would probably be another 12 hours of careful gameplay and like very carefully walking around the island looking at every single thing to not fail any perception checks, which is not a thing I'm going to do. So I saw 2 out of the 3 endings, and they were all both just violently disappointing. And, the game is worth the journey, but it is certainly not worth the destination. And it's
fair enough.
It's interesting to me, Jonathan Blow is sort of criticized for being pretentious. He's known for some pretentiousness, perhaps. But you could edit this game and edit out, I think, all of the pretentiousness, unless you bring some with you, because it's Jonathan Blow, and so you're like expecting to find pretentiousness. I think you could edit out the videos, and you could edit the ending. Honestly, if all the ending was you finish the last puzzle and you do a simple line across and it rolls credits, that would be fine. That would be better than what they did. And just taking out those 2 things would remove, I think, 98% of the pretentiousness from the game and make it so much better. And I'm sad they ruined it with the sledgehammer videos. Hey, in case you weren't getting the point, let me just get it for you with this wooden mallet to the face. And the just stupid ending. So dumb. And the game would be a bajillion times better.
In saying that, if you enjoy puzzle games, you've not played or watched The Witness, you should definitely pick it up, because the sense of discovery, it has its problems. Yeah. But as a puzzler, as a puzzle game, and a game with some really incredible artwork, a lot of it hard to find. Like, it's a game about exploration. And I think if you enjoy exploration games, walking simulators, puzzle games, this is a great combination of those 3. And I'm really sad that Llama ruined it.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely experience it for yourself if you haven't watched coverage. If you find a theater room where you can play a video, don't, like, mute the sound and walk away, turn off the subtitles, and when you get to the ending, as soon as the ending starts, just Alt F4 your machine. You will be happier to have not seen it.
Oh, okay. So let's move on to some other things that are a little more in our wheelhouse. I want to talk about a game that was recommended to me by a couple of friends who had been playing it, putting up some series on YouTube. And I want to talk about it for a couple of reasons. First of all, it's an early access game, and I think it's pretty good and definitely worth looking at. You know, you get a couple of tens of hours worth of enjoyment out of it, even in its current state, which is very playable. But the main reason I want to talk about it is because I don't know why I'm still loading it up to play it. So we're going to talk a little bit about For the King. So For the King, for those who've not seen any coverage, is a turn-based tactics roguelike style game. Basically a party of 3 ill-fated peasants from various walks of life get together to try and save a kingdom from an all-powerful evil thing, because all the heroes are dead and failed to do so. So now the peasants are trying, because that always works out. It's played in 2 phases. The sort of overworld exploration map, which is a hex-based map which you move around on. Each of your characters moves individually. And then it's played in battles, which take place in a sort of Final Fantasy-esque turn-based tactics-style game.
Your team stands on one side of the screen, the enemy team stands on the other side of the screen, and you roll dice at each other until somebody dies.
Yeah, there's a lot of dice in the game, a lot of chances and rolling, and a lot of random events. It's a roguelike style.
Which is a word I personally hate. I think that roguelike has been stripped of all of its meaning because every single game is a roguelike now. So I always hesitate to use that word at all.
I think so. I played the original Rogue way back in like the early 90s. And so I remember what, and most of the games nowadays that claim to be roguelike, they're not like Rogue at all. But roguelike has come to mean games with short, self-contained runs that have persistent progression across multiple runs. Really, that's where the sort of roguelite, roguish
I think
style games have gone.
The basic tenets of randomness and permadeath are sort of the only things you can count on when someone says roguelike. You know, there will be random power-ups, random loot, random equipment, random buffs, and there will be no way to reload a save file. You have to start all the way over.
Yep.
Right?
A roguelike-like.
and this has both of those. Yeah, the roguelike-like are terms that add to the diffusion of the word rogue actually meaning anything at all. But this game,
anyway,
a playthrough is 4 to 5 hours, which is a little long for a roguelike in my mind. So I want to mention that.
It is savable.
You can't.
It is savable, which does take the edge off a bit.
Right. You can't go back to a save, but you don't have to play it in one sitting.
Yeah. So basically, it's a tactics game, and it's a game about time management and effective time usage and resource usage. And there's a couple of things that immediately stand out for me. The first of which is, while still in development, it has a pretty stable and functional multiplayer. So you can actually play cooperatively multiplayer where every player controls one of the 3 characters. You can play with 1 or 2 or 3 people. The game is fine to be played solo. I saw Llama. I was spying on you. You were playing a little bit of For the King the other day while you weren't streaming, playing some single player, I assume.
Yeah. The main point I want to make about this game, there are a lot of points to make. The art's pretty. I really like the style.
It is.
Yep. The real point I want to make about this game is I don't understand why I still want to play it. I still want to play it. I like it. I have a ton of fun every time I boot it up. And I don't know why. Because when I think about what makes a game replayable for me, I immediately think of XCOM because it's the game I have the most hours in. And it's that XCOM presents me with similar but unique puzzles every time I play. There's enough depth and enough complexity. There are enough buttons for each unit to press. There's enough, the positioning on the map matters. And that sets up a situation that I can identify as different every time. And so I feel like I am honing a skill at solving those puzzles. And that is rewarding for me. And when you look at For the King, people have 4 or 5 abilities, not a dozen. And there is no positioning. You are on the left side of the screen, your enemy's on the right side of the screen, you pick one of 3 enemies to punch. Right? They're just the number of iterations and the depth of choices seems like it should have been exhausted by now. And I don't know why I keep liking it. I can't explain. Please help me explore why this game is still fun because I enjoy it.
Okay, so I'm gonna start rattling off some of my ideas as to why it's fun. First of all, I think it's presented brilliantly, right? I think that the art style, the soundtrack, the sound effects, even the combat, which is very simple, right? You pick one of 2 or 3 or 4 abilities. You choose whether or not you want to influence the dice rolls by spending focus points to guarantee successes. You try and roll as many successes on as many dice as your weapon rolls for that particular attack. And for every success, you do a percentage of the damage based on the number of successes. So if you've got 4 dice and you roll 2 successes, you'll do 50%. If you roll 3 dice out of 4, you'll get 75% of the damage, etc. I think that to start with, the presentation is excellent.
Yeah.
The sound effects are great. The weapons feel weighty. Like when they actually make their attacks, you can like when the big hammer lands, its big hammer blow. It feels like a big hammer blow, and it's satisfying from a tactile.
The bard celebrates every hit by playing a little tune on the guitar, like the lute. I can't not run with a bard in my group because I would miss out on the victory tunes. The whole thing.
I think that, so I think that a lot of the allure comes from the presentation and the fact that it's very easy to just play. Right? When you're playing something like XCOM or Kerbal Space Program or Factorio or many of the games that we play, The Witness, your brain is operating at 100% efficiency 100% of the time because you're trying to, calculate the odds and work out the best course of action, and you've got tons of options in front of you. And with For the King, a lot of the decisions that need to be... There's no time constraints because it is turn-based. And a lot of the decisions that need to be made can be made in a sort of slow, methodical way.
Yeah.
And you don't have to think a lot. You can just sort of... I often find myself watching a YouTube video and playing it at the same time, or it's great for filling time.
Notably, the entire game can be played with one hand on a mouse.
Yeah, that's true.
It's super easy to interact with. And I think that I underestimate and I'm starting to realize that I underestimate the value of art design. Can you imagine if Battle Brothers looked like For the King?
It would be the greatest game ever.
I would probably still be playing it. And I wouldn't realize that I was still playing it because the visuals and the sounds were rewarding. I would think I was playing it for the mechanical systems. But I really honestly think that a huge part of the difference between For the King and Battle Brothers, I mean, they're wildly different systems and different, different interactions and hugely different mechanics. But I think a big reason that I still want to play For the King, and I am so done with Battle Brothers, is just the graphics, the animation, the music, the colors.
It's a great game from a design perspective, and there is a bit more depth than first appears, right? When you first pick up the game, it took me a couple of failed runs, because I've only beaten the game. I've probably played 15 runs, and I've beaten it on easy once.
Right.
Like it's not, yeah.
I mean, it could be that you didn't beat it because the dice won't let you. And 1 out of 15 times the dice will let you. But I don't think that's the case. I think there's enough to be learned and enough skill to be gained and enough strategy to be sorted out that now that you've beat it 1 in 15 times, you can probably beat it 1 in 4 times. And you can probably get that closer and closer to winning every run by learning about the game.
Especially with the unlocks. Yeah, especially with the unlocks as well. So there is persistent unlocking in the game. Every time you play the game, you earn a currency that you can spend to unlock items. The items you unlock aren't random, so you can actually pick what upgrades matter most to you. They could be new items, new events. I'm still like 15 or 20 runs into the game, encountering items that I never unlocked, but I haven't seen yet, like new weapons, new armors, new special trinkets and various gubbins. I even picked up a consumable that I'd never seen before in one of my most recent runs.
I found...
And I think...
This is how much this game has infected my brain. This is not, if you're doing a high level, like, should you play this game or not, this is not what people want to hear, because it's way too specific and you have to understand the game for it to mean anything. I found a lance that one of the attacks hit all the targets and on a perfect proc to stun.
Mm-hmm.
And I couldn't believe it existed. I was like, this is bonkers. that I can stun everything on a perfect. Oh my goodness. How am I doing this much damage and stun? Those moments, finding a thing that is powerful, is one of the things that's great about roguelikes in general, because you won't get it every run. And when you do get it, it feels so fun.
Yeah. I think that the art style and the design of the game, the sounds and everything, play a huge part. I think that the ease of play is pretty important. Like, it's just really easy to sit down and play for a bit if you want to play something.
Yeah.
I think that the game presents you with enough decisions, and I think that a lot of those decisions are obfuscated when you first start playing, because there's a lot of times where you have to try and split the party up and hit multiple different targets and decide where you're going to go when, and there's a lot of time management that is not obvious early on.
Right. If it's easy when you get into a new game to focus on the combat and to think of the world map as how you get to the next combat. Yeah. And if this game had to survive on its combat alone, it would not. But the puzzle of navigating the world map, once you realize that it's a puzzle and that there's a lot to be learned there, certainly adds a ton of value and depth to what's going on a playthrough.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they're the reasons, maybe, that you played it. And I think that it's a testament to great art design. That, like, this is one of those games where you can really start to see, especially when it's pointed out to you, how much of an impact choosing the right aesthetic can have for your game, and making sure the sounds are really, really good. And I think that depending on the genre of game that you play normally, you'll have noticed this in the past, right? Like, for instance, there's a game I've been playing a lot recently. You might have heard of it. It's blown up on Twitch. PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds. I've been playing a lot of that off stream. And one of the things that really strikes me as great in PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds is the quality of the sound effects and the, like, the nature of the sound effects. So things like the crack of a bullet as it whizzes past your head, and the echoes and reverberations of the bullet as it because of the sonic boom that it leaves behind, and all of those sorts of things really improve the immersion. So when you start getting sniped at, you can determine the location based on where the crack was and where the boom was and where the thud was and where the gunshot was. Like, there's so many different elements that come together to make for a much more immersive experience, and that really like lifts the game up.
You know, it's funny, as a person who does not play a lot of first-person shooters and hasn't played that one, and importantly hasn't ever looked at it with the sound on.
Mm-hmm.
I was super not impressed by the visual style of that game. It's one of those like realism attempts, and it does a decent job of being realism, and like it looks so generic and bland to me. It looks like it does not have a visual style.
The graphics are very generic, but I think that's more out of necessity than out of choice, right? There's only so much that they can do when you've got hundreds of players playing on the same game.
But I think that may be a case of my background knowledge not being sufficient for me to see what is important about how that looks. I can't perceive it.
Bringing it back to the witness.
Yeah.
Anyway, so For the King, really great game. I've enjoyed playing it single player. How have you found the single player? It's more accessible.
Yeah,
than the multiplayer.
The single player has made me desperately wish for the next quality of life pass over the multiplayer, because it really, if we want to give caution, I hope nobody's gone out and hurried up and bought this while we've been talking. We haven't gotten to the caution part. Which is, it is in early access, and there is some lack of polish, especially if you're intending on playing it multiplayer. It really, really, really needs a quality of life pass, and it doesn't. It would probably benefit from a quality of life pass over the single player, but it doesn't need one. The single player works a lot better, and is just a lot easier to do.
There's a few quirks in the multiplayer, and they're aware of the quirks, and there's even a disclaimer when you go to launch multiplayer.
Yeah.
Like when you open up the multiplayer thing, it's like, well, there's a few things that aren't working here yet, and we know it, and we're going to fix it. But right now we're just making sure the game's feature complete, so
I hope that when they do the quality of life pass, they do a good job.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Because it's really important that the multiplayer gets the updates they know it needs.
Yep. So For the King, it's in early access. If you're not an early access fan, dodge it and wait for it to come out of early access. Personally, I think that the single player is perfectly playable now, and I've had a lot of fun playing it. And it comes with my recommendation. I don't know how likely it is to be finished or anything. So like I said, it is an early access game. Keep that in mind.
Yeah.
If you do decide to go out and buy it.
Despite the clumsiness in the multiplayer, even the multiplayer is playable. We had a lot of fun the couple of days that we spent playing it. But
it's stable.
If those sorts of things frustrate you, know yourself well enough to not buy this one.
Yeah. The multiplayer is stable. We should point that out.
Yeah.
It has quirks, but the quirks are like user interface elements and not seeing what the other player is seeing because screens aren't properly shared when you're not having your own turn. And like
you can't reach into your inventory when it's the other player's turn. All you can do is stare at the screen, which, I mean, there are some things that are just a little bit finicky.
But through hours and hours of playthrough, we encountered one bug, which was on loading a save file and reloading it, fixed it.
Yep.
And, I mean, we're playing from the opposite sides of the world, so if it's stable for us, it'll be pretty much stable for everybody. So that's For the King. What else do we need to talk about? Factorio. Yep. Let's not go too deep on Factorio.
We've covered Factorio before. We've played a lot of it. The thing to say today is there's a new release, 0.15. And
Experimental branch on Steam.
yeah, it's publicly available. You don't need a code. You just need to go into your settings and switch it to the experimental branch to get all the new stuff. And there is a lot of new stuff.
Yeah, so 0.15. If you're interested in Factorio, if you own Factorio, it's a pretty good chance you know a fair bit about what 0.15 was bringing, and you probably already know it's out. But if you don't, basically 0.15 does a bunch of balance changing to try and make the game more scalable, giving you more options for world generation and more options for playing larger bases and improving the ability to manage resources later in the game and things like that. But it also adds a bunch of new content, including, and White Fluid, one of the viewers, was very excited about this, atomic bombs. You can now make atomic bombs.
Now you can ruin the environment even harder.
Yeah. So far, Llama, we won't go into the full changelog. The changelog's available on the Factorio discussion pages and stuff. There's tons of stuff. If you haven't checked out Factorio in a while, it's probably worth having a look. But
for the
what is your favorite?
Well, I want to talk about... maybe this is my favorite. In the broad view of what it seems like the design goals for this update were, tons of great quality of life changes. But also, they seem to want to support varied play styles. And to do that, they've separated science out. Instead of 4 sciences, there are 7. And if you don't want to, you don't have to do the military science branch at all. As long as you set your game settings so you don't need it to win. Meaning, turn the biters off. If that's how you want to play, now you can ignore a big segment of the game and not worry about it at all, and the science is on a separate gray potion. That you don't need gooey alien bits to win the game anymore. So people can play sort of a peaceful
pacifist
style.
Yeah.
And not have to work around getting alien goo. So I think that design direction is great. They've sort of compartmentalized the game so you can play it the way you want, which is pretty important for a sandboxy thing.
Yeah. I think my favorite change so far that I've experienced is I think it's going to be the world generation.
Yeah?
I think that in the past, the world generation was really convoluted and controlled exclusively by sliders, and it was a little difficult to parse exactly what you were doing and changing, and the settings were very limited. And now it comes with a few presets and provides you with a lot more options to customize the way you play. For instance, you could choose to play on a death world, where everything is way more expensive, and the biters are hyper-aggressive and evolve quickly, right, for this really sort of difficult playthrough. Or you could play on a rail world with large patches of spread out resources that encourage you to use trains. And there's these presets that sort of guide you to try a different play style than you might. And I think that's a really great change.
I think the thing I love about the presets the most is you can turn on a preset and then go look at the settings and glean more about what the settings do than you could by just staring and studying them. It's just this quick access to understanding the settings, which is wonderful because a lot of those settings already existed, and maybe you didn't ever bother looking at them because they were just a giant wall of sliders, and the presets can help you sort of parse that. But 0.15 is out.
So Factorio.
On experimental branch. You can get to it right now if you didn't know that. You probably didn't care, because if you care about Factorio, you probably have already been playing it.
Yeah. All right. What else do we need to talk about today? Is there anything else I've been playing?
Oh, yeah. If you have any more games you've been playing recently, I have 2 more topics once we get past those.
Okay. Let me have a quick look here. I think so. It's been a long time since we did a metagaming.
Yeah.
There is one thing that happened back in the middle of March, and I don't think we got to cover it. And I want to talk about it, even though like this is old news, but I'm excited.
Right, on our 12-minute news cycle, we missed this one.
Yeah, exactly. Kerbal Space Program is getting a expansion pack.
Really? I thought they were done developing it. I didn't know this.
I'm sure I would have told you. I guess
You probably did, and I forgot.
Okay, so Kerbal Space Program is getting an expansion. If you purchase the game back before the end of its early access period, you get the expansion for free, which is very exciting because I bought it back then, so I'm getting the expansion for free. I don't know what the cost will actually end up being, but it's going to add a bunch of new parts to the game, and it's going to add 2 new features. The first of which is a mission builder, which will allow you to create your own custom missions that you can share amongst friends in the community to sort of encourage, innovation and stuff in creating new and exciting missions for people to do. And it will also give you a bunch of pre-generated missions that will be based on historic launches from real-world space.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so you'll be able to do like the Sputnik launches or like the original Apollo missions or...
That is the kind of thing I think I needed, because Kerbal Space Program I can play for like 4 or 5 hours, and then it gets too sandboxy and I give up. Right? And all the things I want to do at this point, because I've played a little bit, the things that are left that I want to do break the engine and don't work.
Yeah. Yeah.
And having some historical missions to go on and having some user-made content that I can pick out and try some missions might get me back into that game a little bit. That's super fun.
Yeah. So I don't think there's any confirmed release date yet. I'm just going to pull up the news article here. Hang on. Pricing and release date will be announced later. So no confirmation yet of a release date or of pricing, but it has been confirmed anybody who purchased the game before April 2013 that they will get all updates and expansions, including this expansion, for free. So if you were one of the early backers of the game back from April 2013, God, it's been that long since KSP came out. I loaded it up today, actually.
Yeah.
And had a bit of a look, and I kind of want to go back and play.
I randomly, that Gestalt idea? I watched some KSP streams yesterday. I have no idea why. Just telepathically, I knew that KSP was a thing to be interested in right now.
I loaded it up today because Scott Manley. I don't know if you've watched much of Scott Manley's stuff, but he posted up a video from a series he's doing with like tons and tons of mods, and it just reminded me of how like excited I am for playing more KSP. Like I actually want to install a bunch of mods. It's just so much effort to get like a ton of mods to work together. So
KSP has a great modding community to the point where it's terrifying, and I can't ever spend the time to pick them.
Yeah, I think
and install them and get them all working, and then decide I don't like some of them. Like I think Kerbal Space Program is one of the games that you could spend more time trying to mod your game than you do playing it.
That's absolutely a possibility. All right, so there's one more game I want to talk about, and this is not a game that we'll see for a couple of years. Well, at least a year. I think it's Q4 of 2018. It might be Q4 of 2019. I can't remember. I'll have to pull up the FIG campaign.
Yeah, do we have an estimate?
Because it's in the FIG campaign.
Yeah.
Let me...
They... Do they have a release? Estimated delivery
They do have a
Q4
release.
2018. Yeah.
2018. Okay, so next year. So we've got, this is a while away.
I'm going to spoil it by moving the scene over and showing it.
So Phoenix Point launched into its FIG campaign yesterday. FIG is, for those who might not be in the know, FIG is kind of like Kickstarter, where you can pledge money to the game and the development of the game. As of now, within 24 hours of, I think it's within 24 hours, it might be slightly more. But in the first 2 days, at least, of their FIG campaign being up, they've reached 79% of their goal. They're looking to raise 500,000. Currently, they've got 5,500 backers. We've talked about Phoenix Point before, but for those who might have missed it, quick rundown.
The general gist is the guy that made the 1990s XCOM that you loved is making games again. And this is his new entry into the... the official trailer, the text under the official trailer, I don't feel bad saying this, is new XCOM style game. Which, maybe XCOM is a genre in and of itself. Whoa, camera, focus. Maybe it is a genre and you could just use XCOM style as a genre. I was going to refrain from making the comparison so that this game could stand on its own, but they made it right in the trailer title.
So let's be honest, this is Julian Gollop. He's the brains behind the first ever combination tactics strategy game, right? Yep. I believe XCOM was the first ever combination tactics strategy game, at least that made it big, right? That sort of broke the scene.
He described it in this trailer video as turn-based tactics and world-based strategy.
Yeah, turn-based tactics, world-based strategy. That's correct. So anyway, the concept behind the game is there's been a virus unearthed from below ice somewhere or something, and it's basically changing the entire world, and creatures are mutating and incorporating human DNA, and everything is awful. The premise behind the game is you will control a human faction who has to deal with the alien threat while also managing diplomatic actions with other human factions, because the humanity's been splintered across the globe and has sort of coalesced into these different ideologies, which lead to these different factions that have very drastically different views of how they should be treating the alien threat and the world and so on and so forth. The game promises to have a deep strategy layer based around a hollow globe, very similar to the XCOM style games, where you will be managing your base and your diplomacies and things like that, with turn-based, squad-based battles played on battle maps that will be, I believe, procedurally or at least partially procedurally generated, probably similar to something like the XCOM 2 engine uses. Some of the big selling points that they've talked about is the depth of enemy customization. Yeah. And I'm going to use the words enemy customization rather than enemy procedural generation, because this is something that I think could...
Can I rant briefly?
Yes, go.
Procedural generation is a technology that game developers love, and it's an interesting technology, and they love to brag that they've done it, especially when they've applied it to something new or in an interesting way. But No Man's Sky murdered that word. No one can ever say procedural generation ever again without everyone going, No Man's Sky was procedurally generated. And I don't know the game devs have caught on to the fact that that is now a terrible word that you can never use again. And the problem is that a lot of the time, procedural generation means super duper bland. And I would like to remind everyone that the static on your TV screen when you have your antenna pointed at nothing is procedurally generated. So,
slash end rant?
I might forget something. I might realize I forgot to say something that I desperately wanted to say and rant again. But we can /end rant.
Okay, all right. You can always jump back in. So
Yeah.
the difference between procedural generation and depth of enemy customization, I want to compare it to, and No Man's Sky is a perfect example, right? Procedural generation basically says, here are a set of rules, here are a set of generic components. Those components can be combined in a set number of ways based on like nodes that can connect to other nodes, right? That's basically the gist behind general like procedural generation. You have body parts and you have leg parts and you have head parts and you have arm parts, and they're all generalized, and they all, get mushed together to create some of the ridiculous things you saw in games like No Man's Sky. Phoenix Point is aiming to do it in a different way. Yes, the aliens will mutate and evolve over time to counter the threats that you present them with, but they will do it using, think of it more like equipment upgrades, right? When you think about it like equipment upgrades, or it doesn't sound as dirty.
Even like perk unlocks.
Yeah, exactly.
Instead of, the bad procedural generation is when you have a wall of sliders and you randomly assign a value to each slider, and then you get one more generic drivel beast.
Yeah.
Right? And this is good procedural generation where there are a variety of equipments and a variety of perks, and they can each be attached in a way that, now this is my brain works badly, and I'm trying to fix it.
Okay.
So they've promised to attach these things in response to the player, and that's the interesting mechanical bit, right? The
aliens evolve, right?
Yeah,
is basically the concept,
and they evolve in response to the choices the player's making about how the player's developing their soldiers and what tactics you use in a mission. So if you use too many snipers, the aliens will evolve smaller and smaller, harder to hit vital points. And if you use too many grenades, the aliens will evolve some counter for grenades. And as soon as you say something like that, it feels like a big promise. It feels like something that's difficult to do and new, and my brain loves to run with those and imagine the best thing that could possibly be, and then be let down by everything that is actually possible. And I do that a lot. And so my new reflex is, ooh, I'm really excited about, I'm not allowed to be ever excited ever. This is going to be awful. It's not going to work. Which is a huge, overreaction back the other way to try and protect myself from being hurt again.
The knee-jerk reactions, though. No, let's discuss. So I want to talk a little bit about Phoenix Point. I wanted to bring it up because those people who do enjoy kickstarting programs, this is the kind of thing that I personally threw a little bit of money at it. Not a lot, because I'm just a poor streamer. I need no sympathy. I threw a little bit of money at it because I have a lot of respect for Julian Gollop's design. I don't think he's ever designed a game that wasn't sound in its design, right? He's always created sort of interesting systems and mechanics and things like that, and that's his role as the lead designer on the game. The aesthetic is being borrowed from a really antediluvian, Cthulhu-esque sort of horror style.
I think they say Lovecraft in some of their documents. So I think it's okay to say it's Lovecraftian, probably. Like it's okay to say it's an XCOM style game.
Yeah. So they're borrowing a lot of inspiration from Lovecraftian horror. And so you're getting those bizarre creatures with human animal hybrids and lots of claws and spikes and tentacles and things.
Seems like a giant pile of man heads on crab things.
There's a lot of man heads on crab things. But even, if you go to the Fig campaign, and you should be able to find it, it's called Phoenix Point. If you go to the Fig campaign page, you've linked it?
Yeah.
Well, okay.
For Twitch chat, I don't know if I'll link it on YouTube because I'm lazy.
You can see a bunch of visual demo stuff, right, from early builds and concept arts and early animations and modeling and things. And if you think about Julian Gollop's design work in the past, it's always been pretty good. And you look at this kind of visual and you think, yeah, I could enjoy an XCOM style game with these kinds of visuals. This might be one to keep an eye on. I was super excited when it was announced. Having been given more information and more visual demos, and having watched the launch video and like reading about the different factions and things, I'm still excited. And I've figged it. Is figging it? I don't know if
like
you can use
kickstarting. Kickstart is a verb.
Kickstarting, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know anything about Fig, and that was something I wanted to ask you about. Okay. I made the mistake. I was a fool this morning. We were talking before the stream about never read the YouTube comments.
Yes.
I was a fool, and I scrolled down to the YouTube comments on the trailer for this, and some of the comments were, ew, Fig, ew. And I have no idea if that was just YouTube being YouTube or if that was real.
Okay, so there's some people who don't like Fig. There's a couple of reasons. Fig's new and in direct competition with Kickstarter, which everybody hates anyway because it's Kickstarter, right? Like, people just hate everything because people.
Yeah, well, somebody once got let down by Kickstarter, so Kickstarter can only ever fail. That's, that's how we protect ourselves, right?
Knee-jerk reactions.
Yeah.
The thing with Fig is you also have the option to invest in the game, and it's open to the general public, and some people have a problem with that. I don't personally have a problem with that because I'm intelligent and can make decisions about how I want to spend my money and whether or not I want to invest in a video game for tiny amounts of gains or whether I'd like to, invest in something more valuable.
When you say invest, that's something that Kickstarter has specifically avoided, right? They're very clear that they are not an investment platform. This is actually, on Fig, you can be an angel investor for a few dollars and make several fractions of a penny back.
Yeah, so there are some like benchmarks and things. Like, for instance, if you go to, you can actually go to the campaign and click on invest, and it'll bring up a bunch of information for you if you want to have a look over it. But like, you purchase shares basically, and each share is at a set price. So like, for instance, on Phoenix Point, the price per share is $500, and then there's a revenue sharing agreement based on, whatever's been set up with Fig between the developer and Fig, and based on the number of shares that you have. Like, it provides all of the information. All of the information's there, right? It shows you the expected dividend payouts and the break-even points and how much money the game could make based on how many sales it'll make and how much money that will make you based on the amount of money you invest. And there's calculators and things that you can use. But unless you understand economics and investment, it's really not something that people should be playing around with.
Right.
And it's a button that's very easy to click on, even if you are a monkey with a credit card.
Okay.
And so there's a little bit of...
So Twitch chat is suggesting that this is also poisoned by people hate Tim Schafer.
Yeah, so Tim Schafer launched the Fig platform,
Did
right?
he?
And they launched it with the Psychonauts 2 Fig campaign, I believe.
Okay.
So yeah, it's a thing.
Okay. And because we are the internet and we knee-jerk to things and we never forgive anyone, we're not allowed to judge a project on its merits. We just judge it on the name of the dude, so therefore hate it?
Yeah, exactly. That's pretty much the
Good.
idea.
Yep.
And like, there's been successful Fig campaigns, and it is a newer service, and obviously there's some differences between it and a platform like Kickstarter. I've not been burned by it, so yeah, it's, I mean, it's one of those things that's difficult to comment on because I haven't had a negative experience with it, and I'm not somebody who will just, like, for instance, I haven't stopped buying EA games blanket because EA are knobs or had been knobs in the past, right? They might release a brilliant game and have great support for it. Their customer service might improve. You know, like, I can't... Yeah, there you go. There's a perfect, in chat, there's a perfect example. Pillars of Eternity 2 launched with a Fig campaign.
Okay.
Right? Pillars of Eternity, brilliant game. The fact that Pillars of Eternity 2 is being made because of a Fig campaign, I'm down with that. Like,
I mean, on Kickstarter, you don't blame Kickstarter. At least, I don't think you should.
no.
You blame your own bad choices at backing things you shouldn't have backed, and you blame the people who abuse the platform and the people who make mistakes. Right? They get the blame. Is Fig the same thing? Are people who have a game on Fig autonomous enough that we shouldn't worry that I have a deep-seated hatred for Tim Schafer because of the past? And, like, it's okay to back this project despite the fact that Tim Schafer's name is marginally adjacent to it, because really this is Julian Gollop and we can trust him?
So the difference between Fig and Kickstarter, from my understanding, and this is purely anecdotal, is that Fig is a lot more selective about the products that they offer up because they do offer an investment share, right? There is that whole extra level, which means that they're more selective about their projects. They look to aim at only hosting projects that are very likely to be completed. Whereas on Kickstarter, I mean, you can create a Kickstarter for buying enough toilet paper to create a toilet paper ball that's 100 feet high. Like, you can create that Kickstarter.
Did you hear about the potato salad Kickstarter?
No, I did not.
Some guy kickstarted some potato salad, and he will send you some after he makes it.
So yeah, it's like that's the difference between Fig and Kickstarter, right?
Yeah.
Is that Kickstarter is a completely open source platform. It's like YouTube, right? You can put anything you want up there as long as it doesn't breach like law, right? With Fig, they're a little bit more selective about what they put up, but that also means, like, for me, when I look at Fig Fig launches, I think I can weigh them with a little bit more merit because they do have investors to answer to, including the laymen who are investing, right? They still have to answer to those investors with revenue share, and you can invest for large sums of money through Fig as well and become a shadow investor. You can just throw a little bit of money at the game and get some rewards, kind of like on Kickstarter. And the projects are more likely to be completed because they're cherry-picked by a board of people who work in the industry. So, yeah. I mean, you can hate Fig because it has Tim Schafer's name on it.
Yeah.
But
I forget. I'm a terrible person. I shouldn't do a news podcast. I forget why we hate Tim Schafer. He promised to make some game that didn't work or something.
Yeah, he's promised to make a bunch of games that didn't work or like didn't get completed and things.
Okay.
But like, sure, that's the case. But he also brought us games like Psychonauts, which frankly was probably one of the best platformers and most like innovative platform games of its time back in the Xbox era. Like, you know, yeah, they've had, I think the big difference between Tim Schafer and a lot of other companies that flop their projects is that all of Tim Schafer's flops have come about from crowdfunded, because he was one of the pioneers of crowdfunding, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Whereas a lot of big studios and even indie developers, they try and get a project off the ground, they raise the money themselves. If it flops, it flops. Like if they can't get it to work and they can't get it to work, nobody even hears about it. Or maybe they heard about Project Exodus, which was some secret game that was in development but never came about. Whereas with Tim Schafer, all of his failures have been very public.
Is it possible that Tim Schafer knows enough about crowdfunding because he's failed at it several times, and failing is how you learn. You don't learn anything when you succeed. You learn stuff when you fail. That it's okay for him to create a crowdfunding platform and be successful at that. We can expect that maybe he'd be successful at that. And it's okay to not trust him if he tries to make a game. And, like, that's not cognitive dissonance. We can separate those two things.
Well, I mean, he did. He launched his own most recent game idea on Fig, Psychonauts 2.
Yeah.
And it was funded, and it is in development. But the thing is that you're absolutely right. He knows all the pitfalls, right? He knows about running over development costs. He knows about setting your goals too low. And because the projects are cherry-picked, he probably provides advice, right? The board, I don't know exactly how it works. Yeah. I don't have any inside knowledge here. This is just assumption. And I want to make that perfectly clear. I'm not, like, chatting to Tim Schafer.
I didn't intend for Phoenix Point. Like, I intended to be like, I'm excited! Phoenix Point! Yay! And then we've accidentally started down this dark path of... I like to sit back and think about the knee-jerk reactions. And a lot of people... It is very popular right now to hate Tim Schafer. And I wonder if maybe we shouldn't. And I wonder if maybe we should. But I'm going to default to the opposite position because it's way too easy to find support for definitely hate because it's popular right now. It's so hot right now to hate this guy. So I'm super curious, and I'm perfectly willing to hate him if that's the right thing to do. But I wonder if we're not thinking about it anymore because we've already decided we hate him and we don't have to think about it anymore.
Yeah, I personally don't have any strong feelings about him either way. But if he, is involved in the board of this new crowdfunding site and it provides sort of hand-picked high probability startups or high probability projects that are going to end with like great final products, I think a great example will be Pillars of Eternity 2, and a great example will be Phoenix Point, hopefully, potentially, end of next year. And, like, even Psychonauts 2. Hey, if Psychonauts 2 comes out and it's a brilliant sequel to that, like, beloved game, and it happened because of Fig, like, will we still hate Tim Schafer for launching Fig and launching a big product?
It's really difficult to recover in the court of public opinion.
It is.
It's really hard. So
I think
we will probably still hate him, but maybe we shouldn't.
Somebody in chat's just made a really great point. Tim Schafer is a dreamer. He is incredibly enthusiastic, and like every interview you see with him, every conversation you see him have, every video that he makes, every project that he starts, you can see it. He is just really keen to make the best and the greatest things that he can make, and he just sometimes overshoots the mark. He gets a little bit too enthusiastic, and it's a pitfall for game development, right? Is trying to go too far.
That may counter my earlier question. That may be the answer. Is this a good personality trait for starting a fundraising platform? And maybe it's not.
He's not the only person.
Right.
He's not the only person on the board. So
and we don't know what
surely
his role
he's
is.
Tempered by, he's probably tempered by accountants and lawyers and all of that nonsense. But, all right. We've got one more thing to talk about. We should probably talk about that because we are running out of time.
Yeah.
So Twitch is doing a million things. Like, all of a sudden, Twitch was fairly stable for a couple of years. And then now they've just gone new subs, affiliates, events.
I think it's probably let's use the word. I don't want to use the word blame, but it's the only word that's coming to my mind. But I mean this in a positive way, not in the negative
Amazon's
connotations
fault.
of blame. Yeah, it's probably fair to blame Amazon for this. They bought Twitch, and then they've been pushing that investment and rolling out new features, right? And there's been a ton of stuff recently.
All right, so let's start with new sub amounts, right? I've just been accepted into the beta. I opted in to the new sub amounts beta. So for those who missed the news, on certain channels that have opted into the beta who are currently already partnered, so that would include myself and Llama, you will now have the option to subscribe for more money. You can subscribe for $10 and $25 amounts, I believe. And each of those amounts can net you some additional channel perks, like sweet emotes that are specific to that channel at that subscription level.
And you count as 2 or 6 subscribers for the purposes of unlocking new emote slots for the channel and that sort of thing if you subscribe at those higher tiers. And there may be, are there badges or just emotes? I haven't looked. I looked this morning because I knew we were going to talk about it. And I have 11 emote slots with the changes. I have 11 instead of 8, and I have 1 each for the 9 or the $10 and $25 tiers.
Yeah, I think you have a few more subscribers than me at the moment because I haven't done any work for the past month. But yeah, so I mean, what does this mean for streamers, right? I think like we can talk about what it means for viewers, but really we're best situated to talk about what it means for streamers. So
I had this conversation yesterday a little bit on stream because Recluse asked me because sometimes Recluse is very good at subtly tricking me into doing the self-promotion that I always forget to do. And sometimes he just directly asks me. But he asked yesterday about comparing subs to Patreon. And I think from a business perspective, this is Twitch saying, maybe we should get in on some of that Patreon money. Right?
Pretty much.
There are people who want to support streams for more than the $5 we've made available. Let's make more dollars available. And I think that makes a ton of sense for Twitch. I don't know how I feel. I don't have any data to back up ideas about how it helps or doesn't help streamers. Streamers will probably get a smaller cut of the sub money, the same way they get a smaller cut of the $4.99. If you went and put $4.99 on Patreon, the person you're supporting gets a higher percent. Patreon takes a little percentage off the top and credit card fees, and it doesn't add up to the about 50% that Twitch takes. So you know, if like purely from that basic financial perspective, you're giving Twitch more of your money and the streamer less. But the subculture is a big generator of income. People want to subscribe maybe more than they want to Patreon. So, you know, if I get $250 a month from a person where I would have gotten $450 a month because they subscribed on Twitch instead of Patreon, if you look at it that way, it feels like I lost $2. But if you look at it, that person was never, ever clicking off of Twitch's website to look at anything else. And the fact that it's on Twitch's page has made it easy enough and lowered the barrier of entry, then I made $250 instead of losing $2.
There's also the community building elements as well, right? So like every time somebody subscribes in your channel, while you're streaming, they're like, hey, I've just subscribed. And everybody goes, yay, good on you for subscribing.
And it automatically reminds other people to think about subscribing in a way that's unobtrusive and doesn't detract from the stream, like me saying, everyone go look at my Patreon page every 10 minutes. Right? It's this automatic subtle reminder that subscriptions exist and you might subscribe. And so it snowballs itself. And I think that the big tiers, having those available, I think is a positive thing. I think that I don't think it's competing with Patreon. At least not enough that people are going to lose money month to month.
Yeah. The revenue share is still being decided for existing partnerships. And I think that there's going to be a little bit of work put in around like partnerships and revenue splits and things, especially with these new sub tiers. I think they start off with a slightly higher split for streamers. I can't confirm that because I don't actually have any of them, and they only show up on your dashboard if you have them. So
yeah, I don't know if the revenue page is specific about it either. I'd have to look at the agreement.
It is now. It wasn't, but it is now. If you go to your dashboard and look at your revenue page, it should show you at the bottom your number of subscribers for each tier, and it should show you your revenue split.
Oh, for each
So
tier.
if you've got, yeah.
Oh yeah. So it is a little bit better, and more competitive to do the subs at the higher tiers.
There you go. So that's good. One of the things that I had a concern with, and when I signed up for the sub, they asked for feedback, or the sub beta, they asked for feedback. And one of the concerns I had was, I like the idea of people having the option to subscribe for more, but I think that it might turn people off if the revenue share stays at 50%. Not because I don't think Twitch earns that money. Like, honestly, if Twitch took half of every subscription / Patreon that I had, I would have no problem with that, because they provide me with an excellent platform and a great community, and it's fine.
And if you support the platform, I tell people that all the time, that would you rather have bits or PayPal? Well, PayPal doesn't pay for bandwidth and doesn't broadcast my stream to anyone. And so does Twitch get a bigger cut of bits than PayPal takes of cash? Yeah. But they use it to make this platform and keep improving it. And maybe that's worth your money.
I think it is, personally. And I've sort of strayed away from using direct donations because I don't mind Twitch getting a portion of the payment. It comes down to personal choice, and I think everybody having the option to choose what they prefer is really the correct goal. I think that if Twitch was ever to make it so that there was a conflict of interest clause in their partnership agreements where you couldn't use things like Patreon, I think that there would be a massive uproar. Or like direct donations and things like that. I don't think that'll ever happen, but that's just something to think about. Like,
it makes sense for them to compete with those platforms, with bits competing with PayPal, and with sub tiers competing with Patreon. It makes sense for them to do that. And I think it's a positive for streamers. The more ways there are for people to support something like a Twitch stream, the more people are going to support it. Right? Just having options available, having bits available, means people don't have to click away from the stream and navigate another website, which is huge. That lowers the barrier for people to support the stream, and that's super important.
Yeah. It's probably worth mentioning that during the first month of the program, if you've ever considered buying bits but didn't want to, there is a special on at the moment where you can buy $7 worth of bits and get 700 bits.
Your first $7 goes 100% to the streamer if you haven't bought bits before. There's
Just
no overhead
to think about
on that promotion.
Yeah. For those who might want to grab a few bits now while they're a little bit cheaper and more of the money goes to the streamers. So overall, I think it's a positive move. Yeah. Right?
Sith Wizard has provided us the perfect segue to the next topic, which is, you mentioned if Twitch ever decided to shut down streamers, to disallow streamers from using external sources of revenue. And Sith Wizard says non-partnered streamers would exodus en masse. And the next thing we want to talk about is Twitch support for non-partnered streamers. There is a new Twitch affiliate program because Twitch cares about non-partnered streamers. Very much cares. There's a new Twitch affiliate program that is, I'm gonna go so far as to say, basically open to anyone serious about streaming. And
the requirements are very low.
I may have offended some.
3
Yeah. You need 3 concurrent viewers. You need 500 minutes of content in the last 30 days, and you need that content split up across at least 7 separate streams in 30 days. I think that hits everyone serious about streaming. If you're serious about streaming and you have 2 concurrent viewers and you just got super mad at me because you only streamed 650 minutes last month, maybe you're not actually serious about streaming.
Sorry, guys, you're not actually serious. You're not a real streamer. You're not a real streamer.
I just know true Scotsman you. Take that.
Anyway, so the affiliate program, basically what it does is you apply. It's kind of like getting verified, right, on YouTube, or there's no true revenue share program, but you can get a few emotes for being, I believe, there's a couple of emotes that you can get.
Let me pull it up. I have the. No, I don't. It's not here. You get. I don't know if the emotes are out yet or not. You get an emote, maybe one.
Yeah.
And you get bits. The important thing right now, the big thing right now, is you can drop bits on any affiliate, and people can start getting paid. I went and dropped some bits on the Siroth this morning because he just got his affiliate set up. And so I went and dropped some bits on the Siroth, who's been like super seriously streaming for a long time and hasn't quite made partner yet. And I think this is just great for them. And then they're planning on rolling out new features as well. They're going to add subscriptions for affiliates. They're going to add more emotes for affiliates. Let me see if I can find that FAQ page.
Yeah, I think their eventual intention is for affiliates to replace the current sort of partner deal.
It's not.
And for partnerships to be more structured to allow greater revenue shares and more diverse support and things to partnered streamers. Because a lot of what they're looking to do is like add in little subscriptions and things, and basically like as a partnered streamer right now, we're getting access to things like more expensive subscriptions and a lot more emotes.
Right.
And
so
the affiliates will be getting basic subscriptions and basic emotes and stuff.
It's sort of the basic partnership. Here's the breakdown. Affiliates get cheering with bits, no custom cheer mode. Twitch partners get the custom cheer mode. Mine's on fire.
Yep.
Coming soon, 1 sub emote. Coming soon, game sales. Coming soon, ad revenue for affiliates. And all of those things have premium features coming soon for partners. So we'll find out what that is. Twitch affiliates get priority access to transcodes. So affiliates will always get transcodes before non-affiliates. And then partners get the verified chat badge. And some features coming soon. So the affiliate program is currently in its rollout phase, and they have, I think they estimated 65,000 streamers that qualify, and you have to apply, and you have to wait for them to get around to your letter. They have a huge backlog to go through. So if you haven't been invited, go search for an application, and then you'll have to wait for them to get to you in their huge list.
Yeah, it's a big list, and even with the Amazon takeover, like they only have so many staff, I'm sure. So 65,000 potential applications is a lot. That's so many. But yeah, so affiliate links or becoming an affiliate with Twitch is a thing, and I
think it's great.
You should.
I think it's great.
So there's a lot of people who have talked about, let's play devil's advocate here, right? As an existing partnered streamer who worked really hard to get to the point where we were partnered, and like we put in mammoth amounts of hours and special events and things to
the system feels really arbitrary, and it feels like you don't understand how they're choosing, and you get rejected a bunch of times. And you watch somebody else who, on the day you decided to look at the numbers, was slightly smaller than you, and you're like, oh. It's a very emotional process.
It is. It really is, right? And so there is, from a devil's advocate standpoint, affiliates are basically going to be partner light.
Yeah.
And partners are going to be getting a bunch of new things. But one of the things that was a concern, and the concern's been raised to me, is how do you think that's going to affect your
bottom
piece
line
of the pie?
Yeah.
Because now there are going to be a whole bunch of other streamers who have the ability to be subscribed to and the ability to get bits thrown at them and stuff. And I think from a devil's advocate standpoint, it's scary for a partnered streamer, especially someone who put in so much effort to get to that point in the first place.
Especially when you're right on the border, when you're a small partnered streamer like us, and you're right on that border, and there are affiliates that are just below it, and
I reckon if we'd been applying now for partnership, we might not get it. I think that partnership may become a bit more of an exclusive sort of top-end club, and the people in our range will all end up being affiliates. So we're going to be grandfathered in to the partnership program. But I think I don't think it's going to be an issue as far as revenue is concerned, because right now, if you want to give money to your favorite streamer, even if they're somebody who has 5 people watching them, there is a reasonable chance they have a donate link. And if you really want to give them $5 a month, you can give them $5 a month. I remember when I had 20 viewers, and some of the hardcore guys who've been with me since day one, 2.5 years ago or whatever, were already throwing $5 at me in donations a month, because they were like, oh man, I wish you had a subscription button. And those people who want to support those small streamers are already doing it. It's just now Twitch gets to encourage a little bit more money to be thrown into the pot, and they get to take a little bit of that for themselves as well for providing the service that they're providing. So I'm all for the changes, and I don't think it's really going to affect the bottom lines for people like us. So that's good. It's good stuff.
Yeah, and it's just exciting if you have a friend who you're the guy that they're comparing themselves to, and they're like, how's that guy partnered? He's a hack. I should be partnered. And now you can be like, oh yay! You are an affiliate. Huzzah! We're all friends. Please don't hate me for being lucky.
I remember there was do you remember the period, Llama? There was about a 2 or 3 month period.
Yeah.
After I hit the partner.
Yeah. And I hadn't yet. And I was like, but why?
And you were getting bigger numbers, and you were being more consistent, and you'd done more events. But because of your streaming schedule at the time, you were only doing short streams, and I was doing stupidly long ones because I don't know how to sleep. But that period of time where, because you asked me several times, why did you get accepted? Why haven't I been accepted? That is difficult because there's no answer. There's no,
it is a little bit arbitrary. It is. Mm-hmm. I mean, they are hand selecting, and hands are arbitrary.
It hurts.
Yeah.
All right. Is there anything else we need to discuss today for today's metagaming? I think, have we hit all the points?
We have hit everything I had listed for us to talk about today.
Brilliant. And we've gone over time, which we haven't done for metagaming.
Yeah. Maybe we should do it monthly so we always have enough content.
No, let's try and go back to doing it bi-weekly with any luck.
Yeah.
All right. So, that was metagaming. We talked about the things.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us today. We'll try and get back on schedule with this stuff. I forgot the sign off. I've been Lamachomp.
And I've been Lolash.
And you've been Metagamed. or something like that. I think is how